Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Tropics Watch. We get together at least once a week, mainly on Sundays or as needed, to take a look at what's going on in the tropics, specifically the Atlantic basin. There hasn't been much going on. We're going to break all that down. Even when there's nothing going on, there's always something to talk about. The influences, why it's quiet, or why it might ramp up. And thankfully, we're not expecting too much activity to get going over the next week. I'm meteorologist Jonathan Kagas. We are coming at you from our studios in Orlando, Florida at News 6. Again, we talk about the tropics on Tropics Watch. If you like the content that we are doing, please like and share this. You can subscribe to our channel. Also, click the little bell that pops up to get alerts whenever we do this. If you have any questions, you can also find me on Facebook, Jonathan Kagas News 6, or on Twitter, at Jonathan Kagas for you. And we can talk tropics even, again, when there's nothing going on. You can ask any questions you may have, or, of course, just find the comments section. The good news, again, there's nothing going on in the tropics. We'll get right to it. And, again, over the last few days, there have been one little area in the Caribbean. We actually highlighted this last Sunday on our Tropics Watch episode, and then the next day the Hurricane Center went and highlighted it for the potential for some development. It stayed way too close to Central America and kept running into land, never really had a shot. Still some hostile environment going on as well. Really, the main issue and the main deal has been the Pacific, where they, over this past week, had two named systems, even a hurricane. There's blasts way out into the eastern Pacific, now a tropical storm. You see that there, not very well defined, not looking too organized. Then we have another tropical depression back off towards the east. But the positive thing is here that all the action has been staying away from land, leaving the Atlantic basin alone. So some pretty good developments here. And again, it's June. It's typically quiet, but there's really nothing going on, thankfully, in the Atlantic basin. So as of Sunday morning, no new development is expected over the next 5 days as designated by the National Hurricane Center. Now, I do want to point out a couple of things here on this satellite map. This little swirl up here, would not be surprised if during the early and middle portion of the week, the Hurricane Center highlights this as possible development. You see that swirl there, extending cold front well back through central Florida and then into the Gulf of Mexico. Might get a little something, try to spin. It's not going to be a huge deal if it does, but it's something just to keep tabs on. And then I'm going to show you in a little bit here. We go over some tropical models. They're trying to bite on getting the main development region a little active, or at least trying to get something going here over the next couple of weeks as we start to roll some thunderstorms off of Africa. Still a little atypical for this time of the year, but once we get beyond the next few weeks, we start to light that up. That part doesn't really start to light up until we get into August and really September. That's the Cabo Verde season with those thunderstorms rolling off the coast. Showing you now some ensemble forecasts. First, we're looking at the European ensembles from weathernerds.org. Love using this site to kind of find some of the ensemble data here to show you guys. And then you see these two little L's there. So that's the ensembles trying to pick up on something trying to form. Again, it's just hinting at it a little bit, not screaming it by any means. And this is as we get towards the middle part and latter part of this week, towards the 23rd, 24th of June. Also notice as we go forward in time here, we start to see these little L's pop up. Notice that there. They're the Cabo Verde Islands, the archipelago there. A little something trying to get going here, then another little wave, then another little wave. So hinting at a little bit of development in the main development region east of the Caribbean islands. They're the Lesser Antilles, the Greater Antilles, of course. So that is as we would head towards the 25th and 26th of June, so towards the end of this upcoming week. Still a little early for that to be happening. I'll show you something in a second, but just picture where we have that. The GFS also wants to try to, this is the GFS ensembles now, as we go forward in time. Let me take you further out here into time, and also trying to hint at a little something this week, trying to get going, mainly that subtropical to tropical transition as, again, that system rolling off of the mainland United States gets over the relatively speaking warmer waters of the Atlantic and then tries to get its act together. Tropically speaking, is the potential there? A little bit. We'll watch that one there, but again, it should just be an issue for the Northeast rather than the Southeast and getting into the really warm waters. We're going to have to go deep into the future here to try to find some GFS future development off of the African plateau here as we go forward in time. There we go. This is going to be the 23rd into the 24th. This is the morning of the 23rd. And you see GFS is kind of screaming a little louder here for something to try to get going out off of the Atlantic seaboard from that dying cold front and then take it back into land. So that's something that we are going to watch as we get towards the middle and latter stages. So don't be surprised if you see something highlighted by the National Hurricane Center here. But this is the interesting part down towards, again, the main development region of the Atlantic, these little waves rolling off of Africa. Certainly a little out of season, if you will. I want to show you another one of something that's going on here in the Atlantic, which is going to prevent that from happening. First and foremost, we do have our climatology working against something developing out in that realm. It's typically quiet in June. Certainly we can get things to spin up. We've already had our first storm of the season impact Florida, South Florida, as not even a tropical system just yet. It was named after, of course, it hit Florida. But then as we get into the latter stages of June and July, we have a little bit of a dip in activity. So even that part of July is typically quiet. But then, of course, you see things really start to ramp up. So as we move forward into August and July, that's when things really start to get going. Of course, our chief meteorologist, Tom Soros, likes to call it the mean season. Once we get into August, the real meat in the peak of the hurricane season. So I showed you those two things, and I wanted to show you that to set up this, is that even though that there likely will be an active period, quote-unquote active, it's not going to be super crazy, with these thunderstorms rolling off of Africa, it's still going to be a little difficult for those guys to get their act together. And one of the reasons for that is the Saharan dust. A lot of you guys have been sending in pictures of great sunrises and sunsets from the mainland, from Florida, Texas. There were some great sunrises and sunsets, same for the North Gulf Coast. As we were talking last week, there was that secondary outbreak again of thunderstorms, or I'm sorry, of the Saharan dust because of another round of dust rolling off of Africa. The trade winds really kicking things up and pushing it across the Atlantic basin as well. And while we have those increased trade winds, increased winds as well, it's kind of hard to get things rolling out into the Atlantic. So that's something that we're going to watch again, is if things get highlighted out there, if things try to get going, it's going to be really, really hard for them to do so. So that's certainly some good news as well. Again, atypical for this time of the year as well to do that. Wanted to show you the dust forecast. You see where that it's really, really bright white way out by Africa. So that means that the concentration of dust is really, really thick. There's some decently thick dust over Puerto Rico, over the Greater Antilles, Jamaica, into Cuba, into Hispaniola. You see that kind of spread towards Cancun, into the Yucatan, back into the Western Gulf as well. So these enhanced sunrises and sunsets likely going to continue for Florida, into the North Gulf Coast, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. Certainly that thicker concentration out over the Caribbean as well. Speaking of formation zones, and I keep on talking about it's not that season yet to get things really cooking off of the coast of Africa. Certainly it can happen, and there will be large-scale weather features which will promote the development of more thunderstorms to roll off of Africa. I mentioned this last week when you start to see a model hinting at something, you always inspect it further rather than just plaster social media with, okay, we've got something going on here. You always do a little bit of extra inspecting. Why is the model doing that? And there's going to be some upper level divergence, if you will, to really increase that thunderstorm activity. But where we've seen the stuff in June is typical where we see it in the Pacific and then also in the Atlantic side in the Gulf of Mexico. As we move into July, however, we do start to increase things a little bit further to the east, a little bit further into that main development region. Certainly, we still have some homegrown storms off of dying cold fronts, off of things being born in the Caribbean, and then lifting further north. So there's your hot zone, if you will, number one. Number two, we start to get things in the Bahamas a little more. Those cold fronts, again, like something that could happen later on this week, as we showed you with that system that is rolled off of the American mainland here, could take on some tropical characteristics as we get towards the middle and latter stages of this week, so don't be surprised about that. That's another hot zone, and then gets over the warmer waters of the Gulf Stream or the Bahamas, and then originates in that area and then moves back towards the mainland United States. But this is the start, this is the new stuff now. As we are getting a little deeper into July, really, we start to look for things to work their way. Those thunderstorms start to come off of Africa a little more, and then maybe try to get their act together as they get closer toward the Lesser Antilles and then the far eastern Caribbean. So that's really the third zone of activity, if you will, that we really start to watch, at least climatologically speaking, that we start to watch going forward. So those are going to be really those main areas there that we watch. But again, the good news as we have it in the Atlantic is that we are nice and quiet with no new development over the next few days, and Saharan dust continuing to rule the roost for us in a lot of the Atlantic. I can tell you from Florida on this Sunday morning, we had an absolutely spectacular sunrise. If you want to check out the photo of it, I have it posted on my Twitter and Facebook page. That's going to be Jonathan Kegas News 6 and at Jonathan Kegas on Twitter, of course. So you can hit me up over there, like and share that. That was a fantastic sunrise. Again, if you like the content that we are putting out, and we do a new video every Sunday, kind of looking at the large-scale features of the Atlantic Basin, what is going on, if we expect some development, if we don't expect some development. And again, just to recap, there could be a little something, try to get going off of the east coast of the United States, kind of that subtropical, not completely tropical, to tropical transition. So we'll be watching that with that dying system that is moving off into the Atlantic. And then that little hint of development as we close out June and into July with that main development region trying to light up a little bit as thunderstorms become more numerous off the African plateau and then kind of find themselves migrating out over the Atlantic. So those are the two areas that we're going to be watching over the next week to 10 days or so. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, if you like the content we are putting out, please please subscribe to this channel. Again, this is Tropics Watch on the Click Orlando News 6 page. Hit that subscribe button and click the little bell that pops up, and then you will get alerts whenever we post our new videos to talk about the week ahead in the tropics. Hit me up on Twitter at Jonathan Kegas or find me on Facebook, Jonathan Kegas News 6. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Tropics Watch. Again, things nice and quiet for us once again.